Dead, truck, wriggle out, jump, run, somebody, note, police, blowtorch. This string of 9 words is the most important thing in 5-year-old Jack's life in the novel Room by Emma Donoghue. The novel follows Jack and his ma as they escape their captivity in Room and learn to live in the outside world. And honestly, reading this novel was extremely intense. There's so much about the novel that's messed up, but it has to be messed up because they've been living there. Like, Room is the only world Jack has ever known and stuff, and it's really hard to talk about without getting too in-depth and giving away spoilers, so this is going to be a very short but sweet non-spoilery section. And there also is a movie which Brie Larson won an Oscar for, so if any of you have read the book and are interested in watching the movie, you can go ahead and do that too. Books, TV, music, and movies. All things that make a big impact on everyone. I'm constantly gushing about my latest read to anyone who will listen, so I figured I'd turn my rambling into something coherent that people will actually listen to. That means no tuning out halfway through. I'm Maya Ghosh, and this is my take. Okay, so as always, we are going to begin with a little bit on the writing of Room. The whole book is from Jack's point of view, which I did not know going into it. I thought it'd be from Ma's point of view, and the fact that the book is from Jack's point of view is something I'm going to touch on throughout the entire podcast, so I'm not going to say a ton about it now, but the fact that it was from a 5-year-old's point of view did mean that, like, we as adults or young adults are looking in on stuff that we clearly understand that a child doesn't because their brain is not developed to understand it, which adds a whole another layer of intensity to the novel. There also is something very symbolic in the fact that Jack is still breastfed, even though he's 5 years old, and I wasn't sure that this was what was happening to begin with because Jack doesn't understand that it's breastfeeding. He just says, like, can I have some, or I had some. And so I was like, wait, is that what's going on here? Like, what, huh? So I had to look it up, thank you, Schmoop, and learned that it is a symbol for his closeness and attachment to Ma, which makes complete sense if you get to the after portion of the book where they're living their lives outside of Room, because that's really where his connection to Ma is seen. Because when they're in Room, it's not as obvious how deeply they're connected because it is only the two of them. But once you introduce other players, that becomes a big thing as to how deeply they are connected. It makes complete sense as a symbol, but it was just kind of off-putting to begin with, I guess, because, I mean, I didn't even realize, like, boobs will make milk until a kid is 5, and I had to ask my mom. I was like, wait, does that happen? They were like, yeah, the body will make milk as long as it's being used. Which, when Ma overdoses and comes back later and Jack's like, can I have some? She's like, no, there's no more. That finally makes sense. It's like the 2 weeks or however long she was in recovery and not with Jack, I mean, her body stopped making the milk. Anyways, that's enough said on the writing and the symbolism of breast milk and breastfeeding. But I wanted to split the plot into, like, 3 main sections, which seems pretty obvious. I mean, there's life inside Room, the escape, and then life after Room, and that's kind of how the novel is split up anyways. But beginning with life inside Room, first of all, shout out to Ma because she did one hell of a job raising Jack. Jack is, I mean, for the most part, a fully adjusted child who's fully competent and can read and write and understands. Well, he may not understand the world because he doesn't know the world. He's not just like a lump of potatoes of a child. Like, he knows and understands things for the most part to the best of his ability, having never had any other environment than Room, right? And the things that she thought of, like egg snake, I would never have thought, oh, let's save the eggshells so we can make something out of them. Like, I mean, and making sure that she pressed Old Nick for vitamins and books and everything that he needed. Like, I would not have put together, oh, make sure I get vitamin supplements because there's vitamins that you're not being exposed to, and being careful about sickness, and I mean, PE with the jumping and the different games, and him climbing on the beanstalk, which is just the chairs on the table. Like, all of these different things that she did to keep him entertained, which is very relevant, I guess, in today's society, people with young kids, in the whole coronavirus thing. Like, you have to find new ways to keep your children entertained, but you have the benefit of technology and a TV that has more than 5 channels, and, you know, being connected with other humans. Like, Ma is doing what every parent now has to do, but on crack times 10. Like, not even times 10, times infinity, because it's so much harder, but she's able to stay strong for him, and that is insane. And then also, like, with Ma, we learn about Ma's trauma through Jack, right? Like, we don't get her perspective on her trauma and the kidnapping and the story of, you know, Old Nick needing help with his dog and can you come help me, and then taking her, and all these things that we learn about from Jack's point of view, like the nightly rape and how we learn about that through him counting the bed and the number of times the bed creaks. Like, it just creeps you out so much. First of all, like, the fact that she is getting raped every night by Old Nick, but then also to have Jack exposed to such a thing and have him not understand and have the words for what's going on, but for you as somebody who's older to know what's going on. Like, that, I don't know if juxtaposition is the right word, but it's just like insane and creepy, and my heart breaks for him and for Ma. And yeah, I don't even know. And the fact that Ma, you know, makes Jack go into the wardrobe every night so that Old Nick doesn't see him and he isn't exposed to the horrors of Old Nick. Like, that's another thing that I commend her for, because it just is such a sign of strength. And I mean, yeah, she already had a stillborn like a couple years before Jack, and the fact that, you know, she then was strong enough to yell back at Old Nick and kick him out of the room when she was birthing Jack and all that stuff. Like, just, yeah, Ma is incredible, and I have to give a shout out to her for everything that she did. Now, moving on to the escape, the pain that Ma must have had to go through to pretend that her son, her pride and joy, her entire life in this room, and for the past 5 years, her entire, like, purpose is dead. Like, because I guess for you to act like that, part of you has to believe that, and for her to do that, I would not be able to do that. I don't know how she did that. That is, again, a testament to her strength and the pain that she's gone through, and just so incredible that she was able to do that, and so heartbreaking that she had to do that for her own sake. So yeah, again, go Ma. Also, the escape highlights how amazing Jack is. Like, at 5 years old, he's able to pretend he's dead, get himself wrapped up in a carpet burrito, put in a truck, then have to wriggle out of carpet burrito, jump out of the moving truck, and then run and find a stranger when he's never been out in the world at all. Like, 17-year-old me would not have the strength and the courage to do that, yet Jack at 5 years old has to and is able to, and that is just insane. And another testament to Ma and how she raised him to be so good and so able to do things. Like, it just, every single thing in this book baffles my mind at how it happens, and it's a testament to the human condition and how we're willing to keep going. So yeah, that is insane that Jack is able to figure this out and do this and keep this plan in his head at 5 years old. Then the man who calls the cops and realizes that something is fishy, go him, because I'm sure a lot of people, I mean, it helps that Jack is 5 years old and little and stuff, right? But I'm sure a lot of people have been like, oh, not my business if he says it's his son or his grandson or whatever Old Nick said. Like, let him go. You know, the fact that he calls the cops and that's enough to scare off people like old Nick who were so worried about getting caught. It's good, and it shows that there is good in humanity. The cop who uses Jack's story to locate room, like when Jack's like, oh, I was supposed to jump out the first time, it slowed down, but I didn't, and I didn't the second time, and I didn't the third time, or I didn't the third time, and uses that to figure out how many stops, and like Jack's description of like him moving around in the back of the truck is the turn, and like she's able to pinpoint a location off of that is incredible and amazing, and go her for using her ingenuity and being able to communicate with Jack, who's obviously so distressed and all he wants is Ma, and he doesn't understand anything in this crazy world. Moving on to Life After Room. The biggest part about Life After Room for me was the number of things that I didn't anticipate would be an issue. And I guess this is kind of the perception versus reality of freedom. And I guess this is in my head because we read Beloved in school and we were talking about how we perceived that all of these Black people and African Americans and former slaves would be happy that they are free and it'd just be this rejoice in this happy life, but they still experience extreme discrimination, racism, all that, right? The same thing happens kind of with Jack and Ma, in that we expect that once they're free, that is the pinnacle moment. And I think that's why so many like books that center in on kidnapping and stuff like that almost kind of tend to end with their escape. And it's like, oh, they escape and that's just it, and that's the end, and that's all, you know, they lived happily ever after at the end kind of thing. But with Room, we really focus on life after. That is a majority of the book. And like, I just thought it would be hard to reassimilate into society, both for Ma and for Jack, who's never been in society, and Ma, who's been out of society for so long. I mean, we hear it with people who went into prison in the early 2000s and come out in the 2010s. Like, the technology that has changed, it's hard for them to reassimilate because they don't understand all of this technology. They've been so removed from it. I thought a similar thing would happen to Ma and Jack, but in reality, like, I mean, Ma hasn't been exposed to sun in 7 years. Jack has never been exposed to sun. So they're both extremely sensitive to sunburns. Like, I never thought of that. I never thought Jack had never worn shoes. Like, I mean, even though I knew he hadn't worn shoes, like, I never thought it would be an issue. Even people in third world countries tend to have a pair of shoes, or they understand shoes, and they look forward to getting shoes, right? And it's never talked about that, like, people don't have shoes, right? So it's like, oh yeah, he's gonna get shoes and it's gonna be great. And then he gets shoes and they hurt his feet because his feet aren't used to having to pick up the weight of shoes. Like, what the heck? I never thought that would be an issue. And the stairs, same thing. Jack has never seen stairs, so he doesn't understand that you're supposed to like hold the rail and walk down the stairs. That's why he like scoots down on his butt in the beginning. I mean, I'm proud of Jack that he's able to figure out his own way to do it, but it's also so sad that he has to figure out that way to do it and he doesn't understand, because all of these opportunities and these just general developmental growth moments have been taken away from him. And the fact that Jack doesn't know that there are things besides the things in Broom, like when Ma throws his shirt away and Jack's like, no, how am I gonna have another shirt? And he doesn't know that, like, oh, there are plenty of shirts. And the incident with the book in the mall when Jack is with his aunt and uncle, and how he thinks that it's his book and that's the only book, or he's the only one who had that book and nobody else knows the story of Alice in Wonderland because Alice was only in Broom. Like, all of that stuff that he doesn't grasp, that is so fundamental to human life. I feel so bad and sad and heartbroken that when you really think about captivity and what that is, especially at a young age, how much of that is taken away from you. It's insane and hurtful, and I can't even believe that he's able to reassimilate by the end of the book. I mean, technically, if I was in my psychology class, I should know that the brain is plastic, and especially at a young age, our brain is able to reform and reshape, and we're able to learn things very quickly. That's why I teach your kids a foreign language at a young age, parents out there. But still, it's like the extent of the damage that has been done, it is insane and utterly inspiring that he is able to bounce back from that. So yeah, that is kind of all I wanted to touch on the plot. Next, I wanted to move on to just taking a quick look at Ma and Jack, even though I have touched on both of them and their characters and their strength and all that prior to this. I wanted to take like a more in-depth look at them and how I felt about them throughout the novel. So, starting off with Ma, obviously, she's incredibly strong. I've touched on that and talked on that a lot about her strength and her inner strength to survive and raise Jack and hold out hope and plan this escape. And, yes, it takes her 7 years to escape, but she, in the end, doesn't wait for somebody to come get her. Like, she realizes old Nick's house is being foreclosed on, and she realizes that nobody's gonna come get her, and she jumps into action, is like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get myself and my son out of here. We're gonna do this, and she does it. So, I mean, yeah, that's, I think, all that can be said about that, because I'm running out of words to describe her strength. I could never be her. I would fold and cave and not be able to do it, and like beg to be shot instead of having to live. Like, I would never be able to do that and successfully make it out. Like, I can't imagine, and I don't think I ever could be in her position and survive it. Like, it's just so inspiring to see how hard she's willing to work and how much she's willing to put up with to get herself out and to survive, and I think that's really beautiful. Then the other like main key mom moment is her overdose at the end, and it's so sad because, I mean, after all that she's been through, like, you would think, again, going back to the perception versus reality, you would think that she would be happy and it would be the end and she would just get to be free and live her life, but can't, and it's hard, and she didn't anticipate all of the backlash and all of the people and all of the fame and notoriety her case would get, and just there's a struggle because obviously we have to empathize with her situation, but it's also like, one would think that after going through all of that, you would be so happy to be out, you wouldn't do anything to jeopardize your future and your future at a life with Jack, like a real life with Jack. So it's hard. It's hard, and I think in the end, the only thing that happens is my heart breaks for her even more after that, and seeing that that's how she has to respond to being free. So it's very hard, and it is a very sucky situation, and I hate it. I don't even know how to talk about that part really coherently. The other big mom moment with the interviewer asking her about making Nick drop Jack at a hospital was so rude. Like, this woman has gone through so much, and you're really gonna insinuate that she didn't do the best thing for her child. Like, we already say, oh, don't tell another woman how to raise her child. Like, that's a thing. You don't enter into the parenting of any other kid that's not your own, right? That's just a societal norm. And now this person who has no basis, no connection to her, no, like, it's not like her mom saying, oh, why didn't you ask that? Like, why didn't you think, oh, maybe I could have found him or whatever, right? Like, it's so rude and so unfounded, and what the hell? But then also I have to come at it from the interviewer's angle and say, yeah, I mean, if I was in room, I would not want to raise a kid in room, but if that is my only sense of strength and my only way of being able to go through the next 5 years, then if I'm trying to make a life for Jack, then how is it really selfish? But it is selfish, but it's not selfish. And see what I mean about this book? Like, when you really dive into the complexities of it, you just keep jumping from fence to fence, being like, now I'm on this side, now I'm on that side, now I'm on this side, now I'm on that side. Like, I can't pick a position because I get both sides and I see both sides. Like, what the hell? And then also the questions about how Jack is technically old Nick's son too, But Ma is very firm in saying he's nobody's son but mine, and I love that for her, and I love that she is taking control and being like, no, he is my son, I raised him, he is mine. Like, old Nick has no place in our lives. There's no like way for him to touch Jack. Like, I love that and that strength about Ma, and that she shuts down that conversation so quick with that, and that shows her love for Jack. I mean, everything she does shows her love for Jack, but that shows the bond between, you know, mother and child, and how deep that bond runs, and how she's willing to do everything for him, including shutting down people who are like, well, how can you stand to look at him? I mean, he's old Nick's son. She's like, no, fuck you, like, he's my son and that's it. Old Nick is irrelevant, bye bitch, like, he doesn't get a place here. And I think that's a very strong position, and I love her for doing that. So yeah, those are my Ma opinions. Now moving on to Jack. Again, like, he's incredibly strong too. Both of them are incredibly strong. I don't think I need to keep reiterating how strong they are, because I'm sure all of you get it and understand. Like, Jack's incredibly strong, Ma's incredibly strong. I wouldn't be able to deal with it. We get it, Maya. Stop talking about how you're like weak and wouldn't be able to handle yourself. Okay, I'm moving on, I promise. Anyways, regardless of the fact that he is incredibly strong, I wanted to slap the shit out of him sometimes. Like, for all of the shit that he gives Ma about, I don't want to escape now, I want to escape when I'm 6. Like, I love Room, and Room is my home. And then I slow down and think about, yes, it is his home, it is the only world he's ever known, but, like, that's your Ma. You know her, and you know she's always doing the best for you, but you think that she's not, and you think that she's lying to you, and you think that she's making all this up. Like, why don't you just freaking take her thing at face value? Like, aren't kids supposed to be gullible? Why would Jack not just shut up and listen for 2 seconds and allow himself to be saved and opened up to this brand new world that's so much better for him, and allow Ma some peace of mind in that she's a kid that's listening to her and is gonna get her out of there? Like, I wanted to, like, whack him. But then I had to remember that he's only 5, and this is a complete shock to him when he doesn't understand that Ma was ever a kid. Like, yeah, that's sometimes kids struggle with that, even kids in the, like, world who aren't born and raised in complete captivity. Like, kids struggle to see their parents as kids because, oh, that's my parent, they've always been that age, they don't understand it for a while. But it's like, so I get it, and I have to rationalize it and be like, no, stop, like, he is literally 5, and you need to not be crazy about him and have, like, I can't hold Jack to the expectations I would hold an adult, right? And I needed to consciously remind myself of that, because it was hard, and I think that shows the frustration of the situation, because there's such an obvious solution. You think, why don't the neighbors see that he's a creepy old man with this shed, and, like, what the heck is in that shed? Like, you know, there's so much frustration if they are hiding in literal plain sight the whole time. And I think that that frustration carries over into the relationship that the readers have with Jack as a narrator. So there was this internal battle of how I felt about him the whole time, because, I mean, obviously, again, like Mom, the only thing that ends up happening is my heart just breaks for him. But it's also like, why can't you see? Like, that's just the question you have to not only Jack and Ma, but, like, the whole world. Like, why can't you see that there are these people struggling right in front of you and you don't even notice? Like, wake up. You just want to, like, grab everybody and shake them and be like, hey, there are people in captivity, go get them. So yeah, that is my struggle with Jack. And also, like, the tooth thing at the end freaked me out when he, like, sucked on Ma's bad tooth that had come out of her mouth. Like, I mean, I guess in the end it's kind of the same as the breastfeeding. It's something that he needs to feel connected to her, but it's so gross when you think about a dirty, rotted old tooth that came out of somebody else's mouth, and he's just gonna, like, suck on it. Like, ugh, I can't think about it. But yeah, I mean, it's his connection to her, and I understand that he needs to be connected, and with the lack of the symbolism of the breastfeeding, because Ma's boobs have dried up now, he needs something to feel connected to her. So I understand, but it's nasty. So yeah, to kind of wrap up this whole thing, the book was amazing, and the end, like, as sad and maddening as the whole situation of after Broom was, it became hopeful in the end, because there was always that love between Jack and Ma, and that love was the undercurrent of the whole book that kept me from not, like, going insane while reading it, because I knew that no matter what happened, Ma had Jack and Jack had Ma, and they would be okay. And so it really is a book about empathy and broadening your view of the world as a reader. I really had to broaden my view of the world, and, like, how I treated Jack as a reader, and how I saw freedom from captivity and all of this type of stuff. Like, I had to open myself up to receiving that, and receiving that life isn't always peaches and cream, and I can't see the world through rose-colored glasses all the time, because sometimes it doesn't work like that. And so it's a book about doing that from a reader's perspective, but also remembering that there always is love, because as sad and shitty as this whole situation is, there was always love. It never lacked love, and I think that's another key takeaway, is that there is always love in life. Where there's life, there's love, even if it's really hard to find. So yeah, I have been Maya Ghosh, and this has been my take on Room by Emma Donoghue. Thanks for listening.